You're on.
Hi.
Hello.
We are doing a quick little episode while the baby's asleep.
Oh, it's a quick one. Okay.
Well, it's not quick. Hopefully she sleeps for a long time, but you never know.
So regular length, just the baby's asleep.
Yeah, well, sometimes she wakes up after like 30 minutes. With us...
She's not going to wake up. She sleep for 2 hours.
With your parents, she sleeps literally for 3 hours.
And that's because they wake her up.
And that's only because they wake her up. How do you think that happens? She sleeps for 3 hours when she's at their house, and they have to wake her up. And when she naps with us, we're lucky if we get like an hour 10.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just because she's got into a routine of that's what she does there.
So this is Elevate Our 30s, the podcast where we talk about different topics. It could be anything related to our 30s. It's, we're not experts, but we're working through different areas, and we're trying to make this the best decade ever yet.
Yeah, ever yet. Yeah, I want for it to be even better.
Yeah, that's the next podcast. Okay. Let's focus on this one.
We'll have to rebrand.
Yeah, we'll have to rebrand at that point.
New audience, or same audience, I guess.
same audience, new title.
Okay.
I guess we might have some new listeners, so sometimes I forget to say what the title of the podcast is and tell people what we're even doing here.
I wouldn't start a podcast on like random episode 5 though, unless it was an interesting topic.
Exactly, I would.
Okay. On
an interesting topic. So, and we're doing lots of new things over here at Elevate Our 30s.
Make it sound like we're in our own little island.
We're
in our office.
Tell them, what have we started?
What have we started?
Matthew doesn't even know what we've started.
Oh, the Patreon.
Oh, for fuck's sakes! I'm divorcing you. Honestly, what's wrong with you? Okay,
what do you mean?
We started a YouTube, so if you want to see these amazing videos of us, it adds more color to the fights that we have, just having it on camera. And so I've started a YouTube, youtube.com/elevateour30s. We've got...
So I didn't even know after this. I'm like, I'll check that out after.
I know, it's fucking unbelievable. Like, I said, at least go throw a subscribe our way.
Yeah, I need to do that still.
We've got patreon.com/elevateour30s. This is new, and we're going to film a whole trailer for this afterwards. But I had never been on Patreon, but there's one podcast that I listen to, Nobody's Listening Right, and they have a Patreon, and I never really understood why people do Patreons, other than obviously to make a bit of money. But it's where the people who go and pay a little bit of a subscription for your content, those are your true audience, and you can really go off on Patreon because it's gated.
It's all right, and you can be more unfiltered.
Yeah, you can be totally unfiltered.
Might put people off though.
I think people who will, yeah, maybe.
We'll find out.
No, I don't think so. I think like when you go to the effort to actually pay for someone's content, then you generally like their personality. It's not like you're going to go on Patreon and suddenly I'm going to have wild political views. It's more in the detail of stuff that we wouldn't really talk about on our podcast episodes to the general public. The reason being, we both have corporate jobs. There just has to be some sensitivity with what we talk about. So anyway, we'll just get more into the nitty-gritty details. So yeah, things like last episode, I said I had some big thing I couldn't talk about.
Yeah. That's the episode 1.
What do you mean on Patreon? Episode 1, the big thing I couldn't talk
reveal.
about. Exactly. I would be happy to talk about it on Patreon. Okay. We can talk about, like, I want to go more in depth on kind of being sober and talk more about some of the fucked up stories from when we weren't sober that really drove me to make the decision to stop drinking. I think we touched the surface in the episode we did, but there's so much more. We could go so much more embarrassing.
Yeah, go put some of your drunk videos on there. That'd be funny.
That I don't know if I can do, but maybe. If for the Patreon, maybe. There's just so much more we can dive into. Yeah, we can talk about all sorts. Like, we're trying to get pregnant. We could talk about what we're doing there. And I think that it will be one of the episodes we do. All the medical and non-medical things we're trying because we're desperate to have a baby. So there's all sorts. I mean, and then the more, if you care about certain topics like having Airbnb as a side hustle, we can kind of post more of exactly what we do, exactly how much we make from that, stuff like that we just wouldn't put out on our more public platform, but we will definitely put out on Patreon. So this is all a surprise to Matthew apparently as well, even though I did tell him.
It's not a surprise. I get the principle of it. I wasn't sure on what we were putting on there.
Well, it's for us to be decided, I guess, but go check it out, patreon.com/elevateour30s. We're going to put at least one bonus episode there a month, one with us, and I'll do a solo bonus episode as well.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Is this a bonus episode?
No.
Okay.
This is from normal.
So today's episode, for me at least, is about was resetting in our 30s and what we want to get out of it from a career perspective and from personal life. But I think I had a list of things I wanted to achieve by the time I was 30, and now this is about what do I want for the rest of my life, and is that trajectory still the right one?
Versus, for me, this is more about reinventing at 30. I think in your 20s, you're hustling, trying to get somewhere, trying to get anywhere, and you don't often pause and think, is what I'm doing giving me purpose? Is what I'm doing, I don't know, you just don't think that, for me at least, I wasn't thinking that long term. I was more thinking, I just want to get ahead. Yeah,
it's quite a narrow focus in your 20s. It's getting ahead in your career is probably one of the main things you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Versus now, it's like these feelings of kind of wanting to reinvent myself from a career perspective, a bit from a personal perspective, and not so much reinvent, but focus on other things. And also, there's lots of feelings of thinking you're behind in your career and not having the confidence to maybe pursue the things that you truly want to because you feel old, maybe too old.
Yeah, what, for a career change, you mean?
Yeah, or just to try anything new.
No, for me, I'm on the right path career-wise, potentially. I guess there's two paths, but it's more how much focus you put on that versus family life and the experiences you want to have. Like you said, so 20s was all about hustle, and having a full diary means you're important, whereas now it's like, yeah, career is important, but I want to visit new places and spend time with Violet and make sure the family's got space to grow rather than just my career. Like, your kids up until the age of 4 are in this really unique time, and you never get that back. And if you're away with work all the time, then you're just going to miss it. And the one potential path with my career is you are away all the time and you are going to miss that stuff. Yeah, you might get to partner quicker and you might make more money. But is that, when you sum everything up at the end of your life, is that the right thing to do right now?
We have very different professions, I guess. We're both in the corporate world. But we have, first of all, we react differently to it. I have more strong reaction that I'll get into, which is why I'm more like reinventing myself versus you like the corporate world, I would say. You like your path there.
Yeah, I think I've learned to like it, yeah. Although, yeah, no, I guess I've always wanted to be in a profession and pretty much started in management consultancy when I came out of university.
Yeah.
And it's quite structured progression in that industry. There's 7 grades, and when you start doing different things, you get promoted because you're already doing them. It's not like that you're in a team and there's one head off the team, and unless that person retires or moves on, there's 10 people fighting for it. It's in everyone's interest for you to develop more and get promoted.
I think that probably is why you're not as sick of it, because in your job, you just have to achieve certain thing and you basically get promoted at that point.
Yeah, once you can tick all the boxes, it's almost, if you don't promote me, I'll go somewhere else because they will hire me at that grade.
Exactly. Versus my job, I work in communications, and it's kind of like super ambiguous. It's like, can you own a campaign versus manage with support? And it's like, well, sometimes I can own it, and sometimes you need support, not because you're not capable, but it's just much more ambiguous. And a manager can spin it any way they want kind of thing. It's just much more ambiguous to progress in that career. And I think it's just up to the personalities in charge, how much they care about giving growth opportunities to younger people.
Yeah, which isn't a great place to be when you're relying on someone else.
Do you consider me young talent still?
Yeah, but you're still like 25 in my head.
Exactly. In my head, I'm still young talent. And then I remember that I'm actually not, potentially.
You could be like on the top 40 under 40 list. I guess that's still semi-young.
I think that's another thing. I'm coming into this space in my career where I think you see some people progress really fast in their career. They seem to progress and it just continues at a steady pace. Whereas in my career, it's really hard to push past where I'm currently at. And it feels just arbitrary who gets to and who doesn't. It feels like it's more a matter of, is your company in a phase where they're willing to do that or are they not?
Yeah, it's more on how the business is performing. Because if the economy was in a better state and your business was flying, it'd be an easier conversation to get promoted. But everything's contracting and there's more focus on it. So it's easy to find reasons not to promote you.
Anyway, I don't know if this is boring for people, but I think people can probably relate to just that. I think you hit 30 and for me in my 20s, it was always growing, always going to the next thing in my career and always learning new stuff. And now I feel like I'm at a point where I have a lot of experience in my field. And from that perspective, I guess it's good. I feel like I can be dropped into any project and I'm quite strategic and experienced. And it's a nice feeling to, I guess, feel like an expert. And at the same time, there's not as much growth opportunity in my area unless, and it's kind of what's led me to this, just reevaluating what am I doing, because I think in my 20s I defined a lot of my success around and how well I'm doing based on how well I'm doing in my career and how much money I'm making.
And compared to others.
I'm not always comparing myself to others, but I think just the feeling that I know I'm a little bit ahead is a nice feeling.
Yeah.
And now I don't feel like I feel like I'm kind of on par with everyone, and that's not a nice feeling.
Yeah, and you've got pregnancy and maternity working against you as well, because you basically had 2 years where you weren't flying.
You have this huge slowed down period. I remember when I got pregnant, it's kind of like, oh, don't worry, we won't put too much on you.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I didn't ask for that. And then obviously you go on, and everything kind of ramps down for you. They're like, oh, you're going on maternity leave. It's like, I don't know. I think some companies are obviously exceptional. And then I think a lot of people probably can relate to my situation where, they just...
I think that goes both ways, though. Like, you didn't want to be completely overloaded right up until you're about to give birth. And first trimester was tough.
No, I don't. Sure, but I think it's just kind of an excuse to put you to the side. It's not like right now I'm totally overloaded, but they're not also sidelining me. Versus when they still want you to do work. Like I had a big project that came in the week before I was on mat leave. They still want you to do work, and it's more just like an easy way to sideline you, I think. And then when you come back, it's like, oh, we'll slowly ramp you back up. Yeah. And it's like, I'm actually really impatient. I feel like I just lost a year and a half of my career. Yeah. And no, I don't want to slowly. I want to it just, so that I think that all contributes to, then you kind of realize I can't base all my self-worth on how well I'm doing in my job, because there's all these things that are happening, and even if I worked, so hard to the bone and really tried to kill it at my job, I actually don't think it would make a difference of whether I get promoted or not. I think it's more timing and political sometimes. I think you can be good and then it's just timing and political, which kind of sucks. But it's also like, whatever. And that's kind of led me to the next, for the first time in my life, I'm kind of like, I'm going to also do my own things, because I'm not going to give all my energy to something that doesn't love me back all the time.
Yeah, and you enjoy the work related to your business much more. Like you get up early and want to edit the podcast and work on the website.
Because with yours though, you don't feel like you want to like change career paths or anything, and I think you have had a more you've continued to be promoted. Like I think that's the difference with us is you have nothing slowed you down, it seems.
No, generally not. I've been fortunate enough to keep getting promoted and progressing and having the next challenge ahead of you, and it's always kind of a couple of years away, the next promotion, so it's in sight.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think you get promoted and I don't at this point?
Well, I think it's what you said, it's the industries. I mean, it's very structured. It's about what you need to do to get to the next level in consulting, and there's still lots of, depends where the business is performing and budget to promote people, but definitely less so. So as I do more sales now, if I sell the required amount to get to the next level, then you've got a business case to get it done. Yeah. And it just makes sense for your organisation to want to promote you. Yeah. So I think it's just the structure around the industry compared to what I do and what you do. And I haven't had the slowdown of being pregnant and on maternity as well.
Yeah, potentially. So it's just kind of, it's brought us to this weird place where you have continued to look around and you're constantly looking at where's my next opportunity. Recruiters are constantly reaching out to you.
Yeah, I'm not always looking to jump ship, but it's good to know what's going on in the market for sure.
Yeah.
And sort of intermittently dip in to figure it out. And now I'm in between changing roles again.
Versus I feel a bit more stuck sometimes because I feel like I have to balance like the flexibility that I'm afforded by having been somewhere for a while and like the different arrangements that you've put in place where like I work from home, all these different things, and it's hard to give that up. Yeah,
that's one of the barriers to you getting another job, isn't it? The level of comfort in operating to your own schedule and at home. A lot, because more places are going back to the office now.
It's not that I want to change jobs or anything. I guess it's just been interesting to watch your career and then watch mine and reflect on how you can change a job and you're kind of like, look, sorry, I'm going to be really busy for the next 6 months. And it's like, fine. Whereas for me, that would be really difficult.
Why?
If I had to be in the office like 4 days a week or something for the next 6 months.
Well, yeah, then we just have to find a new way of doing things.
I'm not saying that you wouldn't. I'm just saying it would be difficult. It'd be difficult for me too.
But we'd make it work. That's not a barrier. If that's what you wanted to do, we'd make it happen.
No, I'm not saying you would stop me. I'm just saying it would be a barrier. Like, yeah. Because I don't want to be away from Violet like that. So it does become a barrier. Anyway. Yeah. But it has led us to an interesting place. I don't know. I'm not getting all my confidence from how well I'm doing at work. So I'm just looking around more at other things that I can do. And that has been really difficult at the start, but then really liberating too.
Yeah, and that's kind of triggered in me, is there a different way to do this? Because I've still got a really clear, attractive corporate path in front of me. But then you're going to spend your whole career earning money for somebody else, and you're going to be working a full-time job until you retire. Yeah. Whereas if you have your own business and you've got that flexibility and you can work from anywhere and you can set something up where you have somebody come and run the business for you and you sort of drift away and just take the profits from it. That's not an option with the corporate path. So that's when I started thinking, is there another way completely to think about earning money?
What has been so enlightening is if you had asked, when I was asking myself, okay, if I wanted to do something else, not necessarily quit my job, but if I wanted to do something as well, other than this, like a side hustle or something, if I just wanted to explore something else, what do I want to do? And it's like, I draw a blank. I don't know what I want to do. But then... But then it's also because I had spent no time thinking about it. I guess I get to that point of, well, if I want to do something else, what would I do? It's hard to think about, and it's almost like a challenging brainstorm to have, because you do at the start draw a blank, but then we just kept waking up early, reading inspiring books, and you'd get ideas and you'd get little nuggets here and like just the beginning flicker of an idea of maybe I could do that. And it's like, no, I couldn't possibly. Like, not, it's almost like you're scared to think big. Yeah. But like over time of us consistently waking up early and reading inspiring books and listening to inspiring podcasts and journaling about it, these little flickers of ideas we would talk about, and we'd be like, okay, if there was something else that we wanted to try, what could it be? And like all we had to do was spend like an hour talking about it, and suddenly we would come out of that with little ideas.
Yeah, it's amazing when you actually commit the time to thinking something through, you can convince yourself that it's real. Like when I did my MBA course, the first module was Entrepreneurial Mindset. And there's through 4 people who'd never even spoken to each other before. We'd just met into a group and said, come up with a business idea. So we sort of talked about what we did and what our strengths were and where the overlap was. And we came up with some business. And then you spend the next 3 days just figuring out how you would make it work. And by the end of it, we were thinking, should we do this? Is this a really good idea?
Yeah.
It's just committing the time to it and thinking it through.
Because I always thought, I'm not really an entrepreneurial person. I don't have creative ideas. But I don't know why I told myself that, because I do, it's what you said. It's just about getting into an entrepreneurial mindset. Mm-hmm. And once you get there, then things can build. But I think what you expect is that you're just going to have all these ideas and they're just going to turn, some of them are just going to be really good ideas and it's going to be a clear path. Whereas even getting an idea is hard work.
And most people who work for themselves don't have some unique unicorn idea. That's almost the Hollywood story, the one-offs that you hear about making it big, and they are one in billions.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what everyone has in their mind. You have to come up with something really unique and no one's ever thought of before. But most businesses are doing something that's already established, just a little bit differently. They find that 10% edge that, who is it talks about?
Dan Sullivan.
No, that's
Amy
your book.
Porterfield.
Yeah, that's Amy Porterfield. And Dan Sullivan, who wrote 10x is easier than 2x, which we might talk about.
Yeah.
His view is there's enough space out there for everyone.
That's the thing. So when we did start having these conversations, first we talked about, like, this was just a random walk. We were like, I think you came up with the idea of what if we did a retreat? Because so much of what we like is around this like wellness space and always self-improvement, always. The retreat that I want to go to doesn't exist at the moment. So we just went on a tangent and came up with this idea and fleshed it out more, and we did a bunch of research around it, and that idea is still there, and we didn't stop. That just got paused. Like life got in the way. Probably we both had something come up at work, and that just got put on the back burner. Well, I think then we came up with the podcast idea because we realized we could talk about all these things, and we could just start to kind of put stuff out there and that we're passionate about, and then we can kind of see which idea sticks. But even the podcast, when I first talked about that, I'm like, that's insane. Like, why would we create a podcast?
Yeah, I still wonder that.
I think another thing that came up that it's hard to talk about here, but we'll talk about it on the Patreon. We'll do a follow-up to this episode.
Okay. Nice little hook there.
Yeah, sorry guys. It's stuff that's a little bit more sensitive. We'll cover it there, but we had some decisions to make around. How do we even?
I don't know what you're gonna say.
Anyway,
just don't say it at all.
Okay. Anyway, we can talk about it more on the Patreon, but there was a couple things that came up that we were considering. Basically, I just had an opportunity, and we were considering it. So what it did though is it sparked us to think differently about what we really, just different things that we wanted to try. So we came up with the podcast idea, and things just grew from there. And like now I've put together a website, you put together a YouTube, we've got the podcast launched. Like now we're putting out a Patreon, and there's loads of other ideas that I have that have come off the back of putting out content. And it really is true what they say. You just kind of have to like start and take one step and then take one more step, and ideas somehow evolve into, and then it's made us more entrepreneurial in our thinking. And when we have other ideas, we're more ready to.
Yeah, I kind of like when one of us gets a random idea and we're like, we test it with each other a little bit. Like so we've also thought about making our own cold plunge, because the one we've got there's a few little things you might want to tweak, and we feel like we could do it better for cheaper or a better product.
Yeah, because they're really expensive in the UK.
Yeah, and they have to be imported from the. So I did a little business case, didn't I? Because I know they're made in the US and shipped over here, so the shipping cost is going to be a big part of the fee. And I was like, anyway, I did the business case on it, and that's an opportunity for us.
Yeah.
And even like you hear about some people who are doing a really basic business but earning a lot of money from it. So someone I know, they just literally import and export commodities and deal with the duties and the taxes and make like a good living out of it. So it's when you realise you don't have to have that really unique one-off idea that's going to go big on the stock market. You just need something that you can focus on, and the confidence builds over time. Yeah,
and you just need like a little bit of an edge. So this is kind of one strain of thought. And I mean, it all comes down to, we want freedom to do what we want. I think, I love Tim Ferriss and his 4-hour work week model, which isn't that you only work 4 hours a week, but it's that you can be so flexible. You can kind of have multiple things going. You can,
You could just work 4 hours if you wanted to, because it's a really productive 4 hours and you set everything else up to run itself.
Yeah. And then at the same time, so that's kind of one vein of things, is we've started talking about these other ideas that we have. And it is a confidence builder, because you realize that anybody can have an idea. It's just, do you have the follow-through-ness to do something about it? That's, I think, the biggest differentiator. That's kind of what I realized with the podcast, is I see other people podcasting and I'm like, well, they're them and I'm me. And it's like, well, what do they have that I don't have? All they have is that they follow through and are doing it and can,
Yeah, it's really easy to find barriers as well.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, they don't have a kid, or they don't have a mortgage, they haven't got the same financial restrictions, or they live in a different country, and it almost just stops because you found an excuse for it to not go anywhere.
Yeah. Say you are feeling lost in your 30s or at any point, and you're wondering, okay, well, the world was my oyster, what would I do? When I sat down to do that, the thing that my degree's in psychology, my undergrad degree, and what I always kind of thought that I would be really good at, and what interests me, is to be a psychologist, which is like a doctorate degree. And when I was in school, at first, that was always the plan, to become a doctor, not necessarily a psychologist, but I kind of fell into psychology and I fell out of science and wanting to be a doctor. But it's kind of interesting, because when I do sit down and look at that probably, if I could do anything, that is probably what I would do. And so recently I've been just looking at doctorate programs. And at the time when I finished uni, there was no way I was going back for another 3 or 4 years of school. Like, after finishing 4 years, I just wanted to get into the corporate world, and I wanted to make money. And I was already finding success in the corporate world because I did like a work program through university. I already had a job lined up. I was like so out of there. But I am so, at this point, I would be so down to go back to school and learn about psychology more and be able to have like a doctorate at the end of it. That actually sounds super interesting and exciting. But I wouldn't have even gone there in my brain if I didn't sit down and think like, okay, world my oyster, what would I do if I could do anything? It's like, I'm like, well, maybe a psychologist. And then it's like, well, okay, what would that take? And it's like, oh, it's if my grades are good enough and if they convert to the UK, it's a 3 to 4 year doctorate. That's palatable.
Yeah.
That's achievable.
Yeah.
I'll be an elder at school.
Elder.
But
you'd enjoy it so much as well. It'd be such a different experience doing it at 30 rather than, what would you be, 21?
I know. It's kind of crazy because I was watching videos of this girl who's giving advice about the difference between like a doctorate of clinical psychology and a PhD. And she's like 22. It kind of blows my mind that 22-year-olds train to be doctors and 3 years later they're just like doctors.
Yeah. You bring much more maturity to it now.
Yeah. It just kind of blows my mind in general. This is a bit of a side tangent, but that that's all that qualifies me is 3 more years of school. I know it's 3 more years of school, but it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, but you've always been like incredibly analytical. I think you psychoanalyze people anyway. You'll just be accredited.
Yeah. Well, I think I would just, if I went straight out of my undergrad into this, I would have just tried to get through it. Whereas now I would just soak every moment
you'll
up.
absorb every module, do the extra reading. I would like to sort of learn from you as you go through it as well. I think it'd be a really good experience. The people you'd meet now as well, you'd connect with on a different level. It's not like when I was university, it was just like getting drunk, hanging with friends and doing some exams on the side.
Yeah.
Now it'd be you'd focus on the content and try to learn as much as you can.
Yeah.
Even like the infrastructure of the buildings, like they're really cool places.
I know.
Universities.
I would love it if I could actually get into like a decent university in the UK.
Yeah, in my head you're going to Oxford.
I know.
We're gonna like live on campus somehow.
Anyway, so I think it's just amazing if you just think, okay, if I wanted to do anything, what would I do? Or it doesn't have to be a complete reinvention. And none of this stuff is set in stone. These are just kind of different ideas I'm exploring at the moment. But yeah, it's kind of wild to me that all you have to do is sit down and think about it, and you could take the first step, look into it, and then okay, maybe that, take the next step, see if it's possible, and then and like suddenly you're applying to Oxford like 2 weeks later, and you're in your clinical psychology. You could be in a completely different place in 2 weeks just by thinking about it, by putting in a little bit of time to think about what you might want to try.
Lots of people, and I certainly did, you put a big barrier when you go through that type of door and thinking what you're leaving behind. So there's 2 types of doors you can walk through, like referencing big decisions in your life. And the first type of door is something you just absolutely cannot walk back through. You decide to leave your wife, or I don't know, something you can't turn back from. But most doors, like 95% of doors, you can just turn back to. So if I was to leave my job today, you can find the same job at another company. You probably could go back to the same company. If you went to school, you could quit and just go back to the job you're doing right now. If you move country and you don't like it, you can come back. There might be a financial penalty to it, but I think people assume most doors are like the first, and it's such a big step that it's paralysing, and there's no turning back from it. But most of the time there's actually not that many things that you can't turn back from.
Yeah, totally. Like 30, if you're in your 30s, if you're in your 40s, even if you're in your 50s, you still have a lot of life left to live. And it's always, I think, worth seeing what's going to make you happy.
Yeah.
Because, like, right now, if I just put all my, like, confidence and self-worth with my corporate job, I would not be happy for, like, another 30 years of my life. And that's insane.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the only option is to explore, do hard things, and at the end of that, there's going to be reward. You're going to be doing something that you enjoy. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what you're doing in 12 months.
Anyway, this isn't me like quitting my job. This is just me exploring other things as well. Like, I don't think your life has to revolve around your corporate job. I think for a lot of us it does through our 20s, and then it gets very confusing.
I think that's more where I'm coming at it from. I think I'm not going to have a complete career change. I think for me it's more, do I work to become a partner in an established organisation, or do I set up my own consultancy at some point in the future? And the things that are sort of making me question it is one thing I've always worried about. The industry that I am in, it is quite intense, and people are away from home quite a lot, and lots of the partners that I've seen are divorced. There's probably a high divorce rate, or certainly was. And but those types of different types of people kind of congregate at different organisations. So someone I know went for a partner interview, and apparently they were joking about how many they had. One of the questions they asked was, "How many wives have you been through?" And like, "Oh, I'm on my 4th. How many are you on over there, Dave?" And it's like, "Oh, I've got 3 right now." And it's just like, okay, this is not the place I want to be. But then the organisations I have found, I'm not going to say where it was. But some of the places.
Was it one of the big 4?
Maybe. Anyway, but the types of places I found are much more family orientated, and the leadership teams have young families, or have gone through having young families, and really supportive of that.
Yeah.
Because
I don't like old boys.
Yeah, well, yeah, that kind of shows the type of place.
I can't even be like, because I go to your work parties and stuff, and like, you don't ever get that vibe. But I'm like, I like repel the old boys. I hate.
Well, that's because I don't work at places with those kind of old boys.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, so it's whether you can continue down that corporate path, working in a big organisation, and you get rewarded for it, but there's certain expectations, or you do something by yourself. And
Where
you have
maybe
more
you work,
control, but
yeah.
there's more risk to it as well.
Yeah, I guess it's just like looking at all the options, like you say, and understanding it. Because yeah, if you did do something yourself, it's like you could work really hard for 6 months and then take 6 months off.
Exactly, or you could work from wherever you wanted if it was some remote project, or if you set a business up that wasn't in the service industry, if it was product related, you could be anywhere.
It is interesting that if you have the ability and confidence to go out on your own, there is a lot of flexibility to be had. It's a lot of hard work. Definitely exploring it. You're not, but
yeah, but it's all risk reward of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's high risk but high reward as well.
Yeah.
And if you're going back to school, we can't both do it.
Well, the NHS still pays you a salary actually in that program. It's a very low salary, but
Yeah. All right, should we both be psychoanalysts?
No, I don't think you would be good at it at all. I think that'd be a horrible job for you.
Yeah, I agree. I'm so glad that I can't be your guinea pig, because there's definitely a conflict there.
No, you can be my guinea pig. You just can't be a psychoanalyst.
I can't be a guinea pig.
Yeah, I actually think there's two strains of psychology that I really like. Cognitive behavioral therapy is focusing on things that you do that change your attitude, emotion, change the outcome. So meditating, exercising, all these things. But I think what's really interesting is like, I think you can only get so far with that. And if you don't get to the root of a problem, you're trying to meditate your way out of these things that are never going to go away.
Yeah, you're almost covering over a crack.
Yeah, a little bit. I think they're both really valuable. I am really excited to potentially explore that a bit more. And like, I think I have a lot to offer there. And I never really opened myself up to that. I just kind of graduated, and it doesn't feel like I'm super accredited with just an undergrad. It doesn't feel like I can have any voice on anything like that. Which is interesting too, because when I look at the actual schooling, it's like, okay, you're a doctor after 3 to 4 more years of school.
Yeah.
But I probably read like
halfway
30 psychology books since then and studied them and talked about them. But you have to get that accreditation to be called. Anyway, it's just kind of interesting to think about how little I would still know at the end of that degree. Anyway, so anything else you want to chat about? I mean, I think obviously the point of this podcast is we talk about it when we're in it. We're not talking about it from the other side. This is we're in the thick of reinventing ourselves, kind of, in different ways.
No, we're talking like we're these wild entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
It's just, I guess it's our mindset is from reading lots of books and listening to podcasts and almost what you should do, and we're at the early stages of doing it ourselves.
Yeah. All of the books that we love, I've put in my Amazon storefront now. I recently did that.
You have an Amazon storefront?
Yeah.
Is that LTK?
No.
Oh, what's that?
Oh, Matthew. Does it annoy everyone? I'm going to talk to the camera now. Does it annoy everyone else how stupid he is as much as it annoys me?
For God's sake.
No, I have. If you click the link in our bio, I link to our Spotify, our Apple Podcasts, my Amazon storefront. So I put like a list of the books that I've especially liked reading.
Good idea.
I've linked to a bunch of stuff for Airbnb. So the locks we bought, and I've categorized it all. And then I also have a link of like all the baby stuff I really like from there. And on my LTK, link to click, I think it's called, link to know. That's also linked in our bio, our bio. And that's more where I link like to the makeup that I'm really liking, the clothes, the Ninja Creamy that we recently bought and I'm freaking obsessed with. And I really do appreciate it if we do recommend something and we did influence you to get something, do follow through and click those links, because then, obviously we don't get paid to do the podcast or anything, but so Any support? Anyway, let's bring this to a close. And check out our Patreon.
I will. I'll take a look.
Oh, God. Kill me. Go check out our Patreon. We're going to put out episodes there. I think we're going to try to record one today, so there should be one live for you when this comes out. I'll link it below. It'll be linked in our bio. And go rate and follow the podcast if you like it.
Are people doing that? No. Are we getting
I haven't had any new ones since last week.
Okay.
Actually, I haven't actually checked.
Okay. So no, is there anyone listening?
But anyway, we just really appreciate it. We really appreciate the support.
It sounds professional.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye.